Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new episode of Full Sim Ahead. I'm your host, Zoe. On this cold winter night, Monday, January 26th, as we're recording this, if you're listening to us on the following day, well, it's probably still cold to your commute in Houston, Texas. 27, the lowest yesterday, and it's supposed to be 22, the lowest on Tuesday. So, my gosh, I hope everybody's staying warm and being safe on the roads when they drive. Do not try to slide on that ice. Please do not do that. Don't put your life in risk. Just be safe and just continue to stay warm through this cold winter weather. But a lot to get into as title of this episode post Astros FanFest notes. A lot of takeaways coming in from Astros FanFest. It was a small, I wouldn't say small, it was a good gathering for the fan fest in general, but I think it would have been more packed if this weather wasn't rainy, if it wasn't cold or anything like that, because it was really bad. Shoot, it was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was like 90% to 100% of rain coming in that Saturday. So it was nice to see some fans out there and, going, doing the whole thing, running on the bases, playing catch on the field, throwing in the bullpen, hitting in the cages. Of course, they had some things going around. Daikin Park at their booth, as well as the promotional garage sale. Meaning, if you didn't get none of the promotions from last season, they had some there. Proceeds going to the Astros Foundation. So it was a really good turnout as of the fans and even the players. I believe half of the 40-man roster was out there. Yordan Alvarez, Jose Altuve, Cam Smith, Carlos Correa, Spencer Arrighetti, Lance McCullers Jr. The list goes on. Hunter Brown is another one. A lot of players were out there signing autographs too for fans, interacting with fans as well with the fan forum, asking the players questions with Robert Ford, Todd Callis, Kevin Ashenfeller, Francisco Romero. All the broadcasters were getting the questions from the fans and giving it to the players to answer. But just an overall kind of getting ready for the baseball season coming into play, as we are 58 days away from opening day, 25 days until the first spring training game, and 15 days away from pitchers and catchers reporting, meaning your relievers, your starters, your catchers, backup catchers, even from the farm too, is going to be heading out there to West Palm Beach to get everything settled and ready for a good 2026 spring training at West Palm Beach. But got our objectives right there on the side, talking about Astros FanFest. Dana Brown and Joe Espada did talk to the media regarding different topics, and we're going to get into the main ones. We'll have that there. The Astros aren't done yet. Is that a bad question mark? Are the Astros done? Are the Astros have something up their sleeve? We're going to be talking a little bit more about that. Some player interviews, what took away from those interviews, and as well as spring training coming up, like I had mentioned. But before we get started, make sure you go on that little list below and follow us on our social platforms from FSA Full Steam Ahead on Instagram, Full Steam Ahead on X, Twitter, TikTok, and of course our YouTube channel. We have been throwing some videos day by day. We did the Joe Espada and Dana Brown full interview from FanFest on Saturday. We have the Spencer Arrighetti and Jose Altuve one just recently came out today, and just recently, the Carlos Correa video just came out, and there will be more coming out this week, probably these next 2 days for sure. We're going to get all the videos and interviews out from Astros FanFest. So if you did not know that, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, so you will not miss all the content that we're going to be bringing you. We will not be in attendance for spring training, but we will be for the regular season and so on. Of course, the World Baseball Classic we will be covering as well at Daikin Park. First one going to be a special one with all the WBC games. But a lot to get into, like I had mentioned. And a lot of fans are trying to figure out what's this roster going to look like. Is it going to be the infield is just going to stay the same? There's not going to be no trades. Is the outfield intact? Are they done adding starting pitching? Are they going to go ahead and go with Cesar Salazar instead of adding a backup catcher? Lots of questions to get into throughout this whole FanFest. And it started with the general manager speaking up and some big things coming from the interview. I have just little clips of Joe Espada, Dana Brown, and Carlos Correa. The other clips will, like I had mentioned, will be on our YouTube channel. So go and make sure you subscribe so then you can see them full interviews throughout of it. But Dana Brown was asked some questions regarding the infield, uh, interests from other teams on regarding their players, as well as are the Astros done adding anybody else? And one of the media members had asked if there was any trade interest regarding the infielders. And of course, we already know how the Astros infield looks right now. We don't know how the starters are in the infield. I know for sure I can say confidently that third base is going to be Carlos Correa and shortstop is going to be Jeremy Pena. I think the left side is going to be locked up with them two guys. But regarding about Isaac Paredes, Jose Altuve more than likely is going to get majority of his games at second base, but did ask about him playing some outfield, and he is going to still continue getting some reps at left field. But more than anything, you're going to see the two-time World Series champion at second base. And the biggest question is Christian Walker. I know there was some things on social media, and I thought it was ridiculous looking at that and saying that Christian Walker and Cesar Paredes did not show up to Astros FanFest because they weren't there, regarding that they were going to get traded to. And that had nothing to do with it. Of course, everybody has their own things, their own plans of what they're doing. They have these days offs before the season comes to beginning, which is going to be coming in February and March. And then they won't be with their families a lot more often than they were in this offseason. So going back to Dana Brown, talking about the trade interest in the infielders, and we got a little snippet of the video right here. And I'll even read the quote too after the video is done, concluded.
They have interest in a lot of our players because we're a good team, right? And so, I've had conversations with a lot of other clubs, and they've asked me about multiple of our players. A lot of our pitching. They've asked about some of our infield. They asked about some of our outfield. And so, so we continue to have conversations, but we continue to stay locked in to make this team as best as we can make it.
So the quote says they have interest in a lot of our players because we're a good team, right? I've had a lot of conversations with other clubs. They've asked about multiple of our players, a lot of our pitching, asked about some of our infield. They've asked about some of our outfield. So we continue to have conversations, but we continue to stay locked in to make this team as best as we can make it. So a lot of interest in the pitchers. Of course, there's a lot of promising from AJ Blue Ball. Hunter Brown, I believe more than anything, he's going to be untouchable. Spencer Arrighetti is an interesting one. I'm not sure if anybody has called in on Lance McCullers because of the contract that he has signed with the Houston Astros. But the Astros do have, we can go to the farm. Miguel Ulola is another guy. I'm pretty sure a lot of teams have been guarding interest. And of course, the outfield, I don't even have to say the infield because everybody should know what the infield that these teams are calling for, which infielders they're looking to acquire. But the outfield, you got some young guys like Brice Matthews, who's getting some reps in the outfield, who is an infielder, but starting to get some reps in center. Zach Cole's another guy. Highly doubt that Cam Smith is going to be going anywhere because the Astros literally just got him last season. Jesus Sanchez is another guy. He's fairly young. He's not old. I believe he's in his mid-20s, if I'm not mistaken. But that's another guy that's been getting some interest, I'm pretty sure. And another question came from Dana Brown. This is on my personal Twitter. If you follow me on X, it's at Lorenzo Delgado. And the O at the end of my last name is a 0. So there's the other video regarding talking about adding an outfielder. And when Dana had heard outfielder, I don't think he was really interested in adding another outfielder to this team. So what he then turned it into was saying a left-handed hitter. And of course, if you've been following the Astros this whole offseason, especially with the GM meetings, the baseball winter meetings, when you've heard Espada talk, when you've heard Brown talk, the biggest thing when Brown's been talking about throughout this offseason is adding a left-handed hitter. So the quote comes right here. If that opportunity presents itself, and if we can make some type of trade to do that, I think that'll be intriguing for us to make the team better. End quote. There's no secret about that. Houston has been looking to add another left-handed hitter into this lineup. If you look at the lineup as of right now, the Astros are predominantly right-handed heavy. Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, Jeremy Pena, Isaac Paredes, Yainer Diaz, Christian Walker, Jake Miners. The only lefties on this team as of right now is Zach Cole, Yordan Alvarez, and if you want to, as of right now, the Astros do not have a backup catcher, and if you want to add this guy in, then it would be Cesar Salazar. Them are the only 3 lefties in this roster as I'm constructing for opening day. But if we're talking about just the lineup in general, those are some of the guys that you would see, and Jesus Sanchez, not to mention as well. So the Astros, and I'm getting a little too ahead of myself right now, but I'll get into it here in just a second. The biggest thing for them, if it came between a backup catcher, because he did mention too that he would like to still acquire a backup catcher, but if not, they're going to lift the keys to Cesar Salazar. And like I mentioned too in the last previous podcast, I think Salazar has the best opportunity to take over this role. He knows the pitching staff. He knows the coaches very well. He's been in the farm with Space Cowboys for a while, at least in just the Astros farm system for a decent amount of time. And like I mentioned, he's gone up with some of these guys. He's caught AJ Blueball, Ryan Gusta, who the Astros traded away last season. Miguel Ulola, he's caught some games. Same goes for Hunter Brown, Spencer Arrighetti. So he's very familiarized with himself with this pitching staff that he has. So if it came between a backup catcher and a left-handed hitter, more than likely you think Dana Brown's going to go after a left-handed hitter, because that's what's going to strengthen this lineup that's already pretty decent. I would say it's one of the best lineups. I would say at least top 7 or even top 5 in the American League. But you would like to balance it out with some lefties in it. You can't just realize and have just Yordan Alvarez in this lineup and not have another lefty. Of course, from previous years of the Astros lineups, you had Michael Brantley, you had Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez was still in there. You had Josh Reddick, who was another left-handed hitter. So you had some lefties and you had balance of and this is what Dusty Baker usually would like to do, was a righty-lefty combination. He'd like to go with the right-handed hitter first and then go with the lefty. Right-handed, lefty. I mean, you can even say the same thing for Joe Espada as well. He's had a trend of doing that in some of his lineup cards. But like Dana Brown said, if the opportunity presents itself, if the team gives a good deal, a good package deal, and in return it's going to be a left-handed hitter, I highly doubt that the Astros will sign a left-handed hitter. Don't quote me on it. I'm not very sure if they're going to do that, but more than likely where my heart sees the Astros at least acquiring a lefty is going to be more than likely on the trade market. They're not going to go and add, especially that they're just under the CBT right now with the tax. So that's where I see that happening. Moving to Joe Espada now, of course, if you've heard the GM, now the manager talks about a lot what's going on in the infield. And like I mentioned, a lot of fans are looking to see what the Astros are going to do with the infield. What they're going to project. Are they going to just keep this infield that they have right now? So Joe Espada did mention about the infield, including Isaac Paredes, who he had said the Paredes factor, because you cannot put a setup infielders of every day that you're going to put him there, because you got another guy that can play the infield. So got a clip of it real quick. Snap it right now.
See, Carlos who played third, Jeremy, and then this is the Paredes factor, right? Paredes is healthy. He looked good in winter ball. We're going to ask him, obviously, he could play third, he could play some first. Also, you guys will see him getting some reps at second base in spring training. So we have to be creative and I'm going to find ways to get them all in the lineup and keep everyone healthy. So don't be surprised if you guys see him taking a few ground balls at second, especially he's done it in the past, and also the DH spot.
Sorry about that. Paredes has had some time at second base with the Detroit Tigers. I think, if I'm not mistaken, too, he had played a game or at least an inning with the Tampa Bay Rays. So he's very familiar with second base. Even in spring training last year, there was a video. I do not know who had recorded it. I'm sorry, I don't know who it was, but there was a competition of seeing who was the fastest infielder to get the ball out of their hands quickly to turn a double play. It was Brendan Rodgers, it was Isaac Paredes, and it was Luis Guillorme. The winner of that competition was Isaac Paredes, and usually Brendan Rodgers is a natural middle infielder, as well as Luis Guillorme playing around the infield, familiarized with second base, shortstop, third. He even played first too at a time. So yes, you're going to see him at second base, third base too, of course. If, like I said, if the Astros do continue this infield surplus that they have, that they're not going to trade anybody and they're just going to roll the dice with these guys going into spring training and into the 26 season. Sorry about that. Then he will be backing up for Carlos Correa. Same goes for second base. If Jose Altuve needs a day off, then he's going to be your primary second baseman. If Altuve is going to be playing left field, you're going to see Isaac Paredes play second base. And if Isaac needs a day off at second base, Nick Allen's probably going to move into that role. Lastly, too, DH. He's been DHing in the Mexican Winter League. I don't think they're playing anymore. I know for sure the Naranjeros had got eliminated in the playoffs, so I don't think he's playing. I think he's still practicing, but during that time in the Mexican Winter League, he was playing DH, of course, still recovering from that injury. So you're going to see Paredes a lot there. He, and even Espada had mentioned too, you'll see him at first base, which I think it's perfect because I think the Astros need a backup first baseman as of right now. If anybody's going to be the backup first baseman, not saying Paredes, it would have to be Zach DeCenzo. Zach DeCenzo is the only one on that roster that has experience at first base compared to everybody else. Of course, you don't have Victor Caratini. Yainer Diaz has played just a handful of games at first base as well. You do not have Mauricio Dubon no more. John Singleton's in the Mexican Baseball League now. So more than likely, Isaac is going to be your backup first baseman, and it's good. He's played a little bit of first base too, not a whole lot in games. But come spring training, if the Astros, like I mentioned, go with what they have, then more than likely you're going to see him get probably a bunch of reps, I would say, at first base. I mean, you're a natural infielder at third base. I'm pretty sure at second base you're very familiar too. First base is a little bit, it's a different breed. It's just like the hot corner at third. You're playing on the opposite hot corner at first. So different angles. Of course, you got to work on scoops. You got to work on receiving the ball. So I think that's where Isaac is going to be practicing more of his game. If he is still a Houston Astro going into West Palm Beach, of course, he's still going to get his regular ground balls at all those other positions. But if I had to take a guess, more than likely you're going to see a lot of reps at first base so he can get familiarized with the position just in case Christian Walker has an injury. He's going to be your backup first baseman, which is not a bad option as well. On that quote too, if you did not hear about it, just one of the biggest things said, also you guys will see him regarding Paredes getting some reps at second base. We have to be creative, and I'm going to find ways to get them on the lineup and keep everyone healthy. That is the number one thing heading into this season for the Houston Astros, is they have to stay healthy. You cannot have these guys miss a bunch of games like they did last season. Last year was a plague of injuries from the infield to the outfield, even to the pitching staff. The Astros are looking to stay away from that department of getting hurt, and it just has to deal with everybody getting some days off. Of course, that's different with basketball. You see a bunch of times with that, but baseball, I mean, you're playing 162 games compared to basketball, you're playing 82 games. Same thing goes with the NFL, 17 games or 18 games, and if you count the playoffs. So it's a endurance type of sport. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon for this type of game. And the Astros need to keep everybody healthy. And that's why I said the Astros don't move Isaac Paredes. It shouldn't be a panic. If they don't move Christian Walker, it shouldn't be a panic. It shouldn't be at all because you have some good depth in your infield just in case a guy needs a day off or a guy gets hurt. You can plug those guys in and you still got a good bat. It's not a bad bat, it is a good bat. Christian Walker was very slow in the beginning of the year last year, but the second half of the season, he kind of found his groove and he did pretty well. Same goes for Isak. Of course, you would have liked to see him finish off that second half of the season strong, but that hamstring injury did bite him really bad. And he did come play some games in the last of September fighting that injury. I'm pretty sure he wasn't playing 100%, but having that bat in that lineup goes a long way. Now, I already explained what he does best: discipline, putting the ball in play. Daikin Park just fits really well with him. Same goes for Christian Walker. Like I said, the second half of the season was his best turnaround. Offensively, I do not see that happening this season. Maybe it was a new team kind of like trying to refresh, trying to, get the hang of different players, different hitting coaches, the different environment. So maybe it was just that, but I do not think Christian Walker is going to have a repetitive season like he had, like how he had last season. I don't think he's going to go into that Jose Abreu trajectory of he had a great season in 23 and then 24 he just fell off the map. So I just do not see that with Walker. Coming out what I'm just saying throughout this whole time, talking about Espada, what he says, try to have everybody in the lineup and keep everyone healthy. Health is the biggest thing coming into this 26 MLB season for the Houston Astros. They have to find a way to stay healthy. If they stay healthy, this team is going to go into the postseason. They're very close last year, but like I mentioned, just too many injuries, and that kind of haunted them from making the postseason and missing the postseason for the first time since 2016. A lot of guys are motivated to get back to coaching staff as well. Dana Brown himself. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people weren't very happy sitting on the couch when October baseball was going on their TVs and they were not a part of it. But that was from Joe Espada. Some other key factors coming out of that interview. Like I mentioned, Brice Matthews is going to get some reps in center field and will continue to get some reps at second base, but more reps at center field. He did play 8 games in the last part of the Sugarland Space Cowboy season. He did start 8 of those games in center. So potentially he could carry a utility role because Espada did mention coming out of his mouth saying he's super athletic. They're trying to get some flexibility from their roster, and he could see him kind of have that Cam Smith approach. Cam was a third baseman in the Chicago Cubs farm, as well as being a third baseman with the Florida State when he played college baseball, and then he transitioned to a right fielder. So he sees the athleticism, same thing with Matthews, and that's why he thinks that he can take a jump and try to, maybe put himself on this team come opening day. And then the biggest thing too, like I had mentioned with Dana, Jose Altuve, where are you going to put him? I mean, pretty sure you could put him in left field because of second base. You could have Isaac Paredes, and that's really what Joe had mentioned about Altuve. He's going to get some playing time at left field, but majority of his defense is going to be at second base. He's still going to get some time and some action in left, but majority of his time is going to be at second base. And also added that Yordan Alvarez too is going to get some reps in left field. If you remember, I think it was in the GM or the baseball winter meetings, can't remember which meeting it was, but they had mentioned that they would not like to use Yordan Alvarez in the outfield a lot this coming season, just mainly a DH. But right now you're in a dilemma of a surplus of infielders. In your infield, you have Isaac Paredes too, that has dealt with that hamstring injury from last season. Jose Altuve, of course, too, going to need some days off. Correa is going to need some days off. So that DH role is only fit for one person. Yes, majority of the time it's going to be Yordan Alvarez in that defensive um, designated hitter placement, but you're gonna have to get the big guys some reps in left field. Like I said, not gonna say it's gonna be a lot of times he's gonna be playing left field, but more than likely, I would say maybe under 50 games for sure. You'll see him in left field and be utilized there. So, next topic, real quick: the Astros aren't done, and like I mentioned in the beginning, I was getting a little too ahead of myself, and I believe that yeah, I honestly do not think the Astros are done just yet. Spring training is still to come. Yes, there's 15 days until pitchers and catchers are reporting, but the rest of the roster doesn't get there for another 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it right in front of me, but there's still some time to make some moves. And with Dana, you've seen him kind of be in the silence of making these moves. He doesn't just open his hand up and show everybody his cards. He's kind of a little low and steady, doesn't let anybody know what he's fixing to do and all that type of stuff. So I do believe there's going to be another move made, if not one, two being max. But I believe one for sure is going to happen. And it just starts with that infield. And I'm be honest with you. One of the guys have to go. Christian Walker is going to have to go, or Isaac Paredes. A lot, and I've talked about this in the last episode. If you're the Astros, you want to keep Isaac Paredes. He's still young, has some good numbers on him. His WAR is excellent. The ballpark just fits him very well. Not a bad defensive player. A good batter to have at the plate. Some key situations of a game, as well as working the counts. So I believe they do not want to trade him. However, with Christian Walker, you still got 40 million on his contract, 20 million each year for these next 2 seasons. Who's going to want to take that? That's the biggest question. And who's going to want to take, if I'm not mistaken, Walker's in his mid 30s? Nothing wrong with that. Players can play very well in their mid 30s. Think of Justin Verlander, his Cy Young year. He was in his late 30s or mid 30s with the Astros. So, yeah, different positions, pitching, pitcher, first baseman. But it's just, I think the contract is where it's difficult for Houston to find another suitor to take him. And I'm pretty sure there are teams out there that would like to trade for him, but maybe the Astros don't like what they're gaining back if they trade Walker. And not to mention, too, Christian Walker has a no trade clause, meaning he has the decision to say yay or nay on a trade, just like what Nolan Arenado did with the St. Louis Cardinals. So, if you're a Nationals fan, I'm pretty sure I have a good tone of what you're thinking. You would think they would like to hold Isak and trade Walker, but you're going to get more value in your trade when it comes to Isak. Paredes still has 2 years under contract, as well as, like I mentioned, all his accolades dealing with the offense. His defense isn't bad, as well as 2-time All-Star. And of course, I mean, there's some ballparks that he could hit very well in. It just, to me, I think Houston really gels him really well with them Crawford boxes and left. Of course, we had the idea of talking about Fenway Park being a good, I would say, another good place for him to play at. Of course, he's very familiar with that ballpark, playing the American League East with the Tampa Bay Rays. So it's just going to be interesting what the Astros are going to do, because yes, they have a bunch of depth in the infield. However, in order to get something in return that you would like, for example, a left-handed hitter, you're going to have to give some type of big value back. And one of the biggest values that the Astros have as of right now is Isaac Paredes, and the way he has played the game. He's honestly an excellent player to be around. If you're the Houston Astros, you would want to keep him, but you got, at the end of the day, it's a business. You got to do what's best for your team. And like I mentioned with Christian Walker, yeah, he brings a lot to the table too. Don't think he's already done. The offensive season he had wasn't the best, but the defense, that's where I see Christian Walker makes it up for. If it's not his best offensive season, I mean, a great defensive first baseman, being on the other side, being able to scoop the balls, being able to receive it, um, playing the defense as well on a shot down the first baseline. So either one of them guys are getting traded, or Houston's just gonna have to go what they're going with as of right now. Next up is the backup catcher for the Astros. Victor Caratini was probably the number one option for them, trying to re-sign him back, but goes in the deal with the Minnesota Twins. Now Houston is looking into either adding a backup catcher or going with what they have. And that's why I had mentioned, could Cesar Salazar be the backup catcher for the Houston Astros come 2026? Absolutely. Like I mentioned already in the beginning, I'm not going to really repeat what I mentioned. Very familiar with this pitching staff. I'm just going to say that. He's been under this organization for a while, been with the coaches, and I think he'd be an excellent candidate just to take over that position. You saw him take over that backup catcher role when Victor Caratini got hurt, or if Yonder Diaz as well. He had a little small stint of being hurt. Victor Caratini was a starter, then Cesar Salazar was the backup. So, yes, I do absolutely see him being the backup catcher for the Houston Astros if Houston doesn't go and sign a backup catcher as of right now. If they wanted to, like I had mentioned, the two candidates I'm still very firm on. Not saying that I have sources. I do not have sources, but this is my opinion. I think they could still go after Christian Vasquez. I don't know what Vasquez is asking for, but they could go after him as well as Jonah Heim. Jonah Heim is a switch hitting catcher. That's very rare. You just saw that with Victor Caratini, and Ali Rutschman's another guy that's a switch hitter too. But he could be an interesting candidate to be in a backup role. Like I mentioned, probably wants to be a starter. But at this moment, as of right now, January 27, time is running out. And if you're Heim, you're looking for a team. And the same thing goes for Vasquez. Vasquez is looking for a team. He's already won 2 rings. He has a good opportunity. If the Astros give him a good deal and he likes the deal himself, he could take that deal and still be with a strong contender competing for a World Series ring. But as of right now, it looks like Cesar Salazar is your backup catcher for the Houston Astros. If otherwise, of course, we will let you know. And then last but not least, with the Astros aren't done category, Jesus Sanchez. When Houston traded for him, they thought they were going to get an excellent, young, controllable outfielder that can hit for power, that could hit for contact, and that's going to be on this roster for a good quite a while. However, last season, in his second half with the Astros, it was not really great. I will say the first 2 weeks, or just the first week in general, against the Boston Red Sox and against the Miami Marlins, he was hitting the ball really damn well. And I'll even say another series he was hitting well was against the Baltimore Orioles at Camden Yards. He was hitting it like it was a beach ball. But, of course, not everything's going to go that way. Second half of the season, he struggled mildly. I would say his strikeout rate was really high, swinging a lot of pitches out of the zone, not putting up good quality at bats, a lot of grounders, a lot of pop-ups. It wasn't pretty for Jesus Sanchez, not to mention, too, the defense. It wasn't pretty. Kind of lost some of the balls that were hit to him, as well as fielding a ball in the outfield. So that's another guy that the Astros are surprisingly, honestly, to me, are getting some interest in. Because that second half of the season, of course, maybe it wasn't like the same thing with Walker I was mentioning, just a new team, getting a new feel with some of your new teammates, coaching staff, organization, fans. I mean, just everything new to him, being in Miami so long for his career. But could he be traded before spring training? Could he be traded before the 2026 season? I would say more of the 2026 season, you can possibly maybe see him being traded away from the Houston Astros. And also, too, Chandler Rome of The Athletic, Astros beat writer, and, of course, on his Crush City Territory podcast, they had talked about Jarren Duran and Wilyer Abreu being the names targeted with the Red Sox and Isaac Paredes. And what he had mentioned was the Astros would probably go more for a Wilyer Abreu over a Jarren Duran. And I completely forgot when we talked about in the last podcast episode about Jarren Duran and left-handed hitters. I did not think about Wilyer Abreu. And more than likely, and Chandler mentioned it, Wilyer is the guy that the Astros would preferably want in a trade than Jarren Duran. And it makes sense too. Wilyer Abreu was a part of this organization. If you had remember 2022, the Astros traded him, Valdez, and another prospect to Boston for Christian Vasquez. It was either Wilyer Abreu, Valdez, and another prospect, or it was just Abreu and Valdez for Christian Vasquez. So it was a win-win for both teams. The Astros did win the World Series in 2022. The Red Sox got a young, great player in Wilyer Abreu, and look what he's turned out to be. Really good defensive player in right field. Won a Gold Glove with the Red Sox already. Has great pop, good contact, good power as well. Can hit the ball to all parts of the park, from down the lines to the gaps. So that's a guy that you want in this lineup, especially you have Yordan Alvarez. You would like to follow that up with a guy like Yainer Diaz behind him or Christian Walker behind him, and then you could put Wilyer Abreu. Wilyer Abreu more than likely would be in the middle part of this lineup for the Astros. And it's a very strong lineup if they do acquire Wilyer Abreu, and it just depends who the Red Sox are going to be wanting to trade for. More than likely, it's going to be Isaac Perez, because at first base, the Red Sox acquired Wilson Contreras. But a Wilyer Abreu for Isaac Paredes deal is not going to get it done. There's going to be more coming in, probably another player with Paredes. You're just throwing some names out there. I would think Brice Matthews would probably be a name that's going to be on that list. Another pitcher could be on that name, even though Boston has pitching already. That, you know, they could throw another pitcher on there, as well as a catcher. They got Carlos Narvaez over there behind the plate with Connor Wong, but you can still add another catcher. Maybe they look to add a guy like Walker Yannick. But Boston knows who they have. And just same thing goes for the Astros. The Astros know what they have as well. Though, if you're the Astros, you would love to add or find some type of way to add a Wilyer Abreu to your lineup. Like I mentioned too, I don't think Jarren Duran is a bad option for the Astros, but preferably they would want to go ahead and go after Wilyer Abreu more than Duran. And just getting away from the Wilyer Abreu and Jarren Duran stuff, Chandler did also mention that the Astros have gotten some calls besides Christian Walker and Isaac Paredes. Another name on this roster has been Jesus Sanchez. So if you really want to dig deep on teams that need a first baseman, you can say the San Diego Padres, because Luis Ariz is a free agent right now, and currently the Padres do not have a first baseman. So Walker could be a guy that San Diego could look into. Not sure how Walker would feel about that, but that's a team that could possibly use a first baseman. I'm trying to think some other teams on the top of my head. I'm not sure if St. Louis is another team that could be looking for a first baseman after losing Wilson Contreras. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia is not going to, of course, Walker being from Philly, he's not going to go over there because Bryce Harper's still at first base. There's some, maybe the Mets, maybe if they don't want to trust Polanco at first base, they have a good guy that they can put in Walker. I mean, there's some teams I'm pretty sure that are still interested in even Walker paying attention of his no trade clause. If the Astros do receive a trade and the Astros say, hey, Christian, this is what we got, it's up to you if you want to be traded to this team, that Walker has the authority to put a stop to that trade. Though, going back to Jesus Sanchez, like I mentioned, I do see possibly him being traded in 2026 before the season starts. But as of right now, nothing's set in stone. The Astros just have a lot of young talent in the outfield. That's why I believe that Jesus Sanchez could be traded before the start of the 26th season. Zach Cole's now there. Still got Jake Myers, which I think the trade talk has been a little low. I haven't heard nothing lately yet about him. Um, you still got Cam Smith. You still have Zach DeZenzo, of course, in left field, like we had talked about too. If Zach Cole don't play the corners, you still got Taylor Trammell, as well as Jose Altuve, Yordan Alvarez. So you got some depth in that outfield that you could plug and play with Jesus Sanchez. And this is what kind of makes me hesitant to want to continue saying that the Astros could trade him away before the 26th season, is because they got these new hitting coaches coming in from, the hitting coach from Detroit, as well as a posse from Detroit, and Gonzalez coming from San Diego. You still got these hitting coaches. Maybe the hitting coaches have a plan for him, as well as a new promotion from one of the Astros in staff in the front office. Maybe they have a plan for him. Maybe that plan does work out. And the next thing you know, the trade talks dial down and he stays a Houston Astro this coming season, at least until the trade deadline. Maybe the trade deadline, the name goes back up. But that's why it's a little hesitant for me right now to say, making me hesitant to say he's going to be traded before the 26th season. But I'm going with what I'm saying right now. I do think Jesus Sanchez will be traded before the 2026 MLB season. And I mean, the Astros could get something back regarding a pitcher and an outfielder, specifically a left-handed hitting player. Regarding the infield, I highly doubt the infield because the infield's already pretty much stacked up. But more than likely, it'd come from the outfield or pitching prospect in one of them deals. However, we'll go to the player interviews. The one biggest one we're going to talk a little bit more compared to some of these other player interviews. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we have our Astros FanFest videos coming up. We just had Jose Altuve today, Spencer Arrighetti not too long ago. Carlos Correa's video is already up. So we'll have, I believe, 3 or 4 more coming up in the next 1 to 2 days. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you will not miss the notifications that come through when we post our videos from the interviews in Astros FanFest. But going to Carlos Correa and being a leader of this clubhouse, knowing this organization very well, he's a reason why he waived his no trade clause to come back to Houston, is because he just loves being with the Astros. He loves the organization, like I had mentioned, likes Jim Crane, has great ties with Joe Espada as well, and Alex Cintron before he departed this past offseason. So what was the biggest thing for him coming into this new season? If you remember, after the season had ended, maybe a month after the season ended, Correa and Espada had gone out for to a lunch to talk about, this upcoming season. And Carlos did ask, did not ask, but was asked about what were some of them discussions regarding in this offseason talked about. If you wanted to throw it, just a little bit of information. If you don't want to, then by all means. But one of the media members had asked that about him and Espada going to get some lunch, and they went quite a few times, 3 to 4 times this past offseason, grabbing some lunch. And the video is not very horizontal. It's vertical, more of a social media video, but we got that right here. And I'm having another quote regarding that conversation with Correa. Here's a little snippet of the
video. We have 3-4 lunch together, and the main thing is just helping the guys understand what it takes to stay on the field. We had way too many injuries last year, and I feel like when I got here, there was not people didn't have the routine that they needed to have in order for them to be able to withstand the whole season. And for the young guys and the people that have not been doing this for a while, have not been through injuries in the past, it's easy to get carried away and just go through the emotions on a daily basis. But there are some things we gotta do before and after games, and that's something we're gonna implement in spring training. And then when it comes to playing, once everybody's healthy, I feel like our team is really, really good. So, but we need to put a collective effort into having these routines in order for us to be more consistent when it comes to taking care of our bodies.
There was more into that discussion with another quote with Correa discussing about that the discussions they were having in the offseason, and this is a quote: "We had way too many injuries last year, and I feel like when I got here, people did not have the routine they needed to have in order for them to be able to withstand the whole season. For the young guys and the people who had not been doing this for a while or had not been through injuries in the past, it's easy to get carried away and go through the motions on a daily basis." And Correa is not wrong. He is absolutely not wrong. When he got traded to the Astros, injuries were piling up left and right. And that's even saying away from Isaac Paredes. Of course, that was the main reason why the Astros went to go grab Correa, is because Paredes was hurt. They needed a third baseman. They believed Carlos could fill that gap and play third base, even though they had Mauricio Dubon. But grabbing Carlos Correa back again to be a Houston Astros, that was a big one for them. So when Correa got to the Astros in that trade deadline, like I mentioned, a bunch of injuries had happened. Jeremy Pena got hurt. Yainer Diaz had gotten hurt, as well as some of the pitching staff had gotten hurt too. And of course, we all know the debacle from Framber Valdez, what he had done in that cross up with Cesar Salazar. Of course, I'm not 100% if it was intentional or not, but that made an effect too as well. So going back to what he was saying of being physically healthy for 162 games of the season, some of these guys are not properly, and I'm just saying this is not me thinking that I'm bashing on these guys. I'm just saying what I'm assuming and putting my opinion. Maybe the guys are not working out cleanly after a game or recovering very well after a game, maybe not putting the right stuff in their bodies regarding their nutrition. I'm just throwing that, out there, or just even preparing for a game on an off day. What do people do on the day of a game? What's the pregame ritual? What are we doing? Are we doing a little light workout? Because some players do like to do a light workout before they go and play a game, just to keep their body and their blood pumping. Even after a game, what is it like? Are we doing a cold bathtub? Are we getting in the ice machine? Like all that stuff. I'm not 100% sure what the players do before and after a game, but I mean, like going back to what Correa said, I mean, it's 100% true. This team had battled a bunch of injuries, and especially with a young group now that the Astros have. I mean, not saying they're all young. Jose Altuve, of course, going up in age. Yordan Alvarez is getting to his 30s. But you still got young cats like Yainer Diaz. You got Hunter Brown, Spencer Arrighetti, Zach Cole, Cam Smith. Jake Myers is still fairly young. He's getting to his mid-30s, though, too. Isaac Perez is another guy, Jeremy Pena. So there was a trend last year with just a bunch of these injuries. And Correa, and we've talked about this from the time that Houston had acquired him, of what he brings to this clubhouse. And it's a leadership, it's a voice, it's somebody that's gonna talk out and let his voice be heard of what needs to be done better, what's gonna help this team. And sure enough, that's what the conversations were like with him and Joe. Is just trying to get ready for this season. I'm pretty sure in spring training, they're gonna come together collectively as a group, try to figure out what's gonna be working for best regarding their routine, because like he had mentioned, some of these guys can get carried away and just go through a day-to-day thing that they're used to doing and not, properly take care of their body for a 162 game season. Like I said, this game is a marathon. It is not a sprint. You have to withstand your body for 162 games of a season, including the postseason. If you make it, you're getting up to more, just under 200 baseball games. So having that talk with Joe, of course, what the Astros did in the offseason, having Jeremiah, I think it was Jeremiah Randall, the Astros head athletic trainer, be dismissed. I mean, new hitting coaches now too. So it's a new staff. Of course, these players are going to be having to get a new feel of their new coaches, but going into the season, and Joe had mentioned it when we had talked about with him and Dana Brown. Carlos had already mentioned it. Some of these players too had mentioned it, that the main thing for them coming into this 26 season is staying healthy. And Carlos said it best. If this team is healthy, it is a great team. It is a winning team that you put on paper and you could put on the field. The product on the field is going to be showing you why they're capable of winning another World Series and really competing in that postseason against these other AL top dog teams. Of course, the AL, there's a bunch of good teams. You're going to look at Toronto looking for a vengeance to go back to the World Series and win it. Of course, Seattle just one game away from reaching the World Series. You know they're going to want to get back into it again. The Yankees, the Red Sox. I mean, it's going to be tougher. It's not a cakewalk. It's going to be tougher, especially with these teams getting all these types of players and acquiring from trades. Even the Rangers acquiring Mackenzie Gore this past week. Their pitching staff is pretty damn good. And if you look at it on paper, I mean, Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, Mackenzie Gore. Then you follow up with Jack Leiter. And then Cody Bradford's still a good pitcher too, not to mention, which I think he's going to be getting ready for spring training. I'm not sure if he'll be 100% ready. But my take at the end of the day is this team has to stay healthy if they want to reach the postseason. And for Houston last year, that bug just bit them too many times. And they almost honestly had made the postseason, but Seattle was just the hotter team at the right time, and Houston kind of fell apart with all these injuries. Of course, too, Jeremy Pena getting hurt in that last week. Jake Myers, too, landing on the IL. So, number one goal for Houston, and this is just me speaking, is more than likely stay healthy. Real quick, we're going to go through some of these player interviews. These are the interviews. I do not have snippets of them of the video. So if you want to do that, like I mentioned, go to our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe as well. But we'll start with Jose Altuve, 100% healthy with his foot, heading into spring training, ready to go. They had mentioned about too with him playing left field. Is there a problem? Would you like to play second base? He said basically that he's just happy. He's good. He's just happy that he's with this organization. Happy that he gets to see his name on the lineup card. So wherever you put him on the field, he's just ready to go and play the game that he loves. But another thing that just came out today from January 26th, Monday, FanFest. Altuve did mention that he would love to represent his country and play for Team Venezuela for the World Baseball Classic. But as of right now, dealing with some paperwork with the insurance, even the Astros bench coach, Omar Lopez, who is going to be managing Team Venezuela, had mentioned a bunch, I wouldn't say a bunch, but some of their players regarding committing to the WBC has been from the insurance and the paperwork from these guys. So that's why you haven't seen a lot of updates on the WBC regarding Team Venezuela. But today, Brian McTaggart did break the news that Jose Altuve won't participate in the WBC from the request of the Astros. And it's honestly a win-win for both sides. Win for Jose Altuve because he's he's not fairly young. He's already getting up in age. I'm not saying he's old and he's going to be bad, but of course you want to be healthy for this whole season. And last WBC, if everybody remembered, he did get hit by a pitch on his hand. He had to miss, I believe, a month and a half of games with Mauricio Dubon. Really did a good job too, not to mention taking that role, but missed a handful of games because of a broken hand or a broken finger. And for him, it's just getting him prepared for the 2026 season. Of course, he's still going to get some reps in left field, like I had mentioned, but being able to work with the team. And for the Astros, too, getting this win is getting the commitment from a veteran franchise player in Altuve. A lot of players, and I'll even say this for an example, Logan Webb had came out and talked about the San Francisco Giants wanting him not to participate in the WBC for Team USA, but he said this was his decision and he wanted to represent his country. And I believe, and if I was in Logan Webb's shoes too, I would too. I would love to do it, especially if it's going to be my first time playing in a WBC game and representing my country. You would want to do it your first time. But Jose Altuve, this is his, if he would have participated in this WBC, it would have been his third time playing in the Classic, but he's already done it 2 years. He already knows too that he needs to get prepared heading into this 2026 season. So, like I said, win-win for both sides. If you're the Astros, you're thankful you have a player like that would accept it and go with their requests. So Jose Altuve just continues to be a standout player for them and a stand-up guy as well. Spencer Arrighetti, thrown only 7 bullpens, ready to go with spring training. He had mentioned last season, of course, with them horrific injuries, and it was just crazy how the injuries had happened. But he had mentioned that he's already put that in the past, as well as ready to compete for a spot. Very motivated. We did put one of the videos from his interview on our social media page, on at least on Twitter. We'll get on Instagram. We'll get it on TikTok pretty soon. But he has very motivated to get and compete for a spot because, of course, the Astros added a lot of pitching depth this offseason. And for the Astros and for Spencer Arrighetti, this just puts a hungry wolf in that den that just wants to continue working and continue to prove that he's still capable of being a high leverage starter in this rotation. Like I had mentioned when we projected our rotation very early from after the 25 season, I did mention I do see Spencer Arrighetti being the number 4 guy. I did say number 3 because we did not see Tatsuya Imai come and be a Houston Astro, but he's a Houston Astro. I still see Spencer Arrighetti being that number 4 starter in this rotation. Number 3, more than likely, is going to be between Imai and Christian Javier. But Arrighetti just excited to work with some of these new additions too. Very pumped up to get to know him. He's very happy and getting to work with Mike Burrows, Ryan Weiss, and just ready to get out there to meet his new teammates and just getting ready to compete for a new spot. He did also mention with his arm too that there was no like torn ligaments or anything like that. It was just more of inflammation in his elbow. So no surgery or anything that was required. If that was the case, the Astros would have had mentioned something then. And like I said, he's ready to get going for spring training. Another guy that had an injury last year that ended his season too was Bennett Sousa. He's already thrown 5 bullpens, just like Spencer Arrighetti, ready to go for spring training. He had dinner with some of the new guys, with Ryan Weiss. He had dinner with him before the night before Astros FanFest. He's already got to talk with Nick Allen, and he's coming back with a familiar face that he's already played with, and being with the Chicago White Sox where the Astros had picked him off waivers. He knows the new pitching coach in Ethan Katz. And what Sousa had talked about, because if you remember, Bill Murphy had gotten the pitching coach position with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So that left a opening for Houston. Ethan Katz was the guy to gain that position. Of course, Josh Miller is going to still to be the head guy, talking and communicating with his pitching staff. But you got Ethan Katz, and Sousa said it's a perfect guy to fill in the void of Murphy not being on the Astros organization. And just like Murphy, he had mentioned he's almost the same guy, knows the analytics of the game. So he said he's a perfect guy to fill in this position as the Astros pitching coach. Last 3 guys, we're going to talk about Cam Smith. Of course, Dana Brown mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, the press conference of Tatsuya Imai, or actually maybe this past one of Astros FanFest regarding on Cam Smith having to compete for a spot. And Cam really didn't, made it a big thing. He knew what he's coming in here for. It's going to be his 2nd season with the Astros, not a rookie anymore, but he's just not complacent about where he's at. He's going to continue grinding, continue to get better at his craft. If you remember, he was a Gold Glove finalist in a right field last year, a position that he didn't have a lot of playing time in, at least in some games. I know in the Cape Cod League, if I'm not mistaken, he did play a little bit of right, but I'm talking about minor leagues with Florida State. And with the Astros, that's pretty damn impressive. Coming in your first rookie season and being a Gold Glove finalist, that's pretty damn good. But I'm ready to go. I'm ready to compete with the guys at spring training for the outfield position. Learned a lot last season in his first rookie year. Some guys that he relied on were guys like Mauricio Dubon, who's not going to be with the Astros. Not to mention the Astros lost their DJ. They lost DJs back-to-back years with Tucker, and now Dubon. Now they're going to have to find another DJ in the clubhouse. But he relied on Doobie a lot. Some other veterans that he has talked to and, got familiar with is Christian Walker, as well as Carlos Correa. So he's ready to go out there, improve his craft, and compete for a spot, in which honestly I think right field is still his position to lose. But of course, you got to roll with the hot hand, and Brown's not afraid to basically, if you need some more reps, we'll send you down and get some more reps in Sugarland. So don't be surprised with that. Hunter Brown has thrown 6-7 bullpens in this offseason. The Astros haven't contacted with him or connected with him on a possible contract extension. So if it was the year for the Astros to try to find a way to get an extension done, it would have been this year. And really, it would have been a difficult time to do that because of him finishing third in the Cy Young voting. It's just going to be more difficult for Houston trying to find a way to get him an extension this coming next 3 seasons or 4 seasons left of his contract. So nothing yet, but very excited to work for spring training, ready to get going, just like Spencer said, with the new guys, Pearson, Wise, Burrows, ready to go with the rotation, being that new leader as well, being that new ace of the rotation. Now that Framber Valdez, as of right now, is not a Houston Astro, still free agent, but not a Houston Astro anymore. Taking away Christian Javier out. Hunter Brown has been more the guy that's been that ace, has been the guy that's basically improved his game, as well as kind of being that vocal leader of that rotation. So going with that. And then last but not least, Zach Cole, very young, regarded prospect coming into he was a rookie last year. He'll be a rookie this year as well, but could potentially play a first full rookie season with the Houston Astros, just trying to continue to prove his defense. And he had mentioned the main focus he wanted to do was be versatile throughout the whole outfield, playing each position, left, right. He's, of course, played a lot of games in center field, but trying to get the corners figured out, get him better at that so he could be very versatile through the whole outfield, give options for Joe Espada to put plug and play. Because Jake Myers, of course, still with the Houston Astros, he'll be your center fielder. Like I mentioned with right field, could potentially be Cam Smith, and then left field is kind of, whoever's the hot hand. Or if you want to put Jose Altuve or Yordan Alvarez out there, then those are the guys that you're going to go with. And then not to mention too, if you have been the social media presence, he had taken a trip to Hungary this past offseason on a mission trip with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, FCA, working with kids and, conducting a baseball camp with some other players. I thought that was pretty cool. He did talk about that. He's really huge on his faith, a really good kid, really great guy. If you want your son or your daughter to, kind of watch a baseball player, the position he puts himself out there, I would say Zach Cole is a really good example. Very, like I had mentioned, very family oriented, big on his faith, and of course, very hungry too. No pun intended with that. Hungry, going all the way to hungry, but very hungry to get active, motivated to continue to compete with all these other guys and be able to soak all that information like a sponge. So that is the end. Spring training, like I mentioned, if you did miss the beginning of the show, 15 days till pitchers and catchers report to spring training and 25 days until the first spring training game is underway. And if you were very late to this, 58 games until opening day. Yeah, WBC, not to mention, is right around the corner. I think it's like 34 days to that the World Baseball Classic will be coming on. But that is the end of our show. Appreciate each and every one of y'all standing on your night to get the best information for your Houston Astros, as well as the interviews and getting the analysis and the depth of what's going to happen going into spring training and what coaches and the front office is saying. But like I said, appreciate each and every single one of you. Like I said, we got our social media platforms at the bottom of the page with our TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, Full Steam Ahead on TikTok and Twitter, FSA Full Steam Ahead on Instagram. And like I mentioned in the beginning of the show, we have our FanFest interviews with all these players. If you had to stay in the beginning of the show, I had some snippets of Dana Brown, Joe Espada, as well as Carlos Correa talking in some of these videos. Well, I have some other videos out there on the Astros FanFest with, at least of today, you have Jose Altuve, Spitzer, Arrighetti, Carlos Correa. We'll have more coming in the next 2 days. We still have Hunter Brown. We got to post. We still got Cam Smith, Bennett Sousa, Zach Cole's another guy too. So we'll be making sure we add those videos on to our YouTube page. So, like I said, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell. Hit that like button too on this video if you enjoyed it. Appreciate each and every one of y'all doing that for me. Not to mention, next weekend is TriStar, which is going to be the 40th anniversary, if I'm not mistaken, for TriStar. That's a big autograph and collector show in the Houston area. A lot of big names. If we're just specifically talking about baseball, Zach Cole's going to be there, as well as Jose Altuve, Yordan Alvarez, Jeff Ken, a former Astro, being a Hall of Famer for the first time, is going to be out there too. Walker, I think Walker Yawnick's supposed to be out there. I believe AJ Blueball's supposed to be out there. So Craig and Jeff are, the two guys are always at TriStar every year. They will be out there. If you don't know who they are, Jeff Bagwell, Craig Biggio, just to let you know. But yeah, we will be covering that show as well. So make sure, like I mentioned, hit that subscribe button so you do not miss any of these videos and the content that we're going to be posting here in just a little bit. And Tuesday, like I mentioned, I hope everybody stays safe on the road. And if you are on the road trying to listen to a podcast, radio's not going well, you want to hear some Astros information, well, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you want to listen to us during your workout, try to get all this information to let your other gym mate to tell them the information about these team. Make sure you hit that follow button, hit that download button, hit the feedback, the 5 stars, all that stuff. We appreciate all of that. That goes a long way for us. But until then, we will talk to you next week. We'll see if there's any big information. We'll see if there's a big trade coming in, pretty soon. If so, like I mentioned, we'll have that emergency podcast episode. But till then, we'll have the new episode coming next week. But stay safe, stay warm. Like I said, do not drive on the ice if you see it very icy. Stay safe in Houston and just around the U.S. too, with this huge cold front and winter storm that we are having. Stay safe, stay warm, and we'll talk to y'all soon.